So hello everyone. This is the part 6. This is the part 2 of chapter number 6 of modern history. The chapter name is Revolt of 1857, and in this video we'll be studying, in this audiobook we'll be studying the immediate causes of the revolt of 1857. All the best, and let's read along. By 1857, the material for mass upheaval was ready, and only a spark was needed to set it afire. The episode of greased cartridges proved this spark for the sepoys, and the mutiny provided the general populace the occasion to revolt. The new Enfield rifle has been first introduced in the army. Its cartridges had a greased paper cover whose end had to be bitten off before the cartridges was loaded into the rifle. The grease was in some instances composed of beef and pig fat. The sepoys, Hindu as well as Muslims, were enraged. The use of greased cartridges would endanger their religion. Many of them believed that the government was deliberately trying to destroy their religion and convert them to Christianity. The time to rebel had come. The beginning and the course of the revolt. Was the revolt of 1857 spontaneous and unplanned, or a result of a careful and secret organization? It is not easy to answer this question with certainty. A peculiar aspect of the study of history of revolt of 1857 is that it has to be based almost entirely on British records. The rebels have left behind no records. As they worked illegally, they perhaps kept no records. Moreover, they were defeated and suppressed in their version of events, died with them. Lastly, for years afterwards, the British suppressed any favorable mention of the revolt and took strong action against anyone who tried to present the rebels' side of story. One group of historians and writers had asserted that the revolt was the result of a widespread and well organized conspiracy. They point to the circulation of chapatis and red lotuses, propaganda by wandering sannyasis, fakirs, and madaris. Other writers equally forcefully deny that any careful planning went into the making of the revolt. They point out that not a scrap of paper was discovered before or after the revolt indicating an organized conspiracy. Nor did a single witness come forward to make such a claim. The revolt began at Meerut, 58 kilometers from Delhi, on 10th May 1857. Then, gathering force rapidly, it cut across northern India as if like a sword. It soon embraced a vast area from Punjab in north and the Narmada in the south to Bihar in east and Rajputana in the west. Even before the outbreak at Meerut, Mangal Pandey had become a martyr at Barakpur. Mangal Pandey, a young soldier, was hanged on 29th March 1857 for revolting single-handed and attacking his superior officers. This and many similar incidents were a sign that discontent and rebellion were brewing amongst the sepoys. And then came the explosion at Meerut. On 24th April, 90 men of the 3rd Native Cavalry refused to accept the greased cartridges. On 9th May, 85 of them were dismissed, sentenced to 10 years imprisonment and put into fetters. This sparked off a general mutiny among the Indian soldiers stationed at Meerut. The very next day, on 10th May, they released their imprisoned comrades, killed their officers, and unfurled the banner of revolt. As if drawn by magnet, they set for Delhi after sunset. When the Meerut soldiers appeared in Delhi, the next morning the local infantry joined them, killed their own European officers, and seized the city. The rebellious soldiers now proclaimed the aged and powerless Bahadur Shah the Emperor of India. Delhi was soon to become the center of the great revolt, and Bahadur Shah its great symbol. This spontaneous rising of the last Mughal king to the leadership of the country was recognition of the fact that the long reign of Mughal dynasty had made it the traditional symbol of India's political unity. With this single act, the sepoys had transformed a mutiny of soldiers into a revolutionary war. This is why rebellious sepoys from all over the country automatically turned their steps towards Delhi, and all Indian chiefs who took part in the revolt hastened to proclaim their loyalty to the Mughal emperor. Bahadur Shah, in turn, under the instigation and perhaps the pressure of the sepoys, and after initial vacillation, wrote letters to all the chiefs and rulers of India urging them to organize a confederacy of Indian states to fight and replace the British regime. The entire Bengal army soon rose in revolt, which spread quickly. Awadh, Rohilkhand, the Doab, and the Bundelkhand, central India, large parts of Bihar, and East Punjab all shook off British authority. In many other princely states, rulers remained loyal to their British overlord, but the soldiers revolted or remained on the brink of revolt. Many of the Indore's troops rebelled and joined the sepoys. Similarly, over 20,000 of Gwalior's troops went over to Tante Tope and Jhansi of Rani. Many small chiefs of the Rajasthan and Maharashtra revolted with the support of the people who were quite hostile to the British. Local rebellions also occurred in Hyderabad and Bengal. The tremendous sweep and breadth of revolt was matched by its depth. Everywhere in northern and central India, the mutiny of the sepoys triggered popular revolts of the civilian population. After the sepoys had destroyed British authority, the common people rose up in arms, often fighting with spears and axes, bows and arrows, lathis and sickles, and crude muskets. In many places, however, the people revolted even before the sepoys did, or even when no sepoy regiments were present. In the wide participation in the revolt by peasantry, the artisans, shopkeepers, day laborers, zamindars, which gave it real strength as well as the character of a popular revolt, especially in the areas present included in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Here, the peasants and zamindars gave free expression to their grievances by attacking the moneylenders and new zamindars who had displaced them from the land. They took advantage of the revolt to destroy the moneylenders' account books and records of debts. They also attacked the British established law courts, revenue offices, tehsils, and revenue records and thanas. It is of some importance to note that in many of the battles, commoners far surpassed the sepoys in numbers. According to one estimate, the total number of about 150 1,50,000 men who died fighting the English in Awadh, over 100,000 were civilians. It should also be noted that even when people did not rise up to the revolt, they showed strong sympathy for the rebels. They rejoiced in the success of the rebels and organized social boycott of those sepoys who remained loyal to the British. They showed active hostility to British forces, refused to give them help or information, and even misled them with wrong information. W. H. Russell, who toured India in 1858 and 1859 as the correspondent of the London Times, wrote that in no instance is a friendly glance directed to the whiteman's carriage. Oh, that language of the eye, who can doubt? Who can misinterpret it? It is by it alone that I have learnt our race is not even feared at times by many, and that by all it is disliked. The popular character of revolt of 1857 also became evident when the British tried to crush it. They had to wage a vigorous and ruthless war not only against the rebellious sepoys but also against the people of Delhi, Awadh, northwestern provinces, and Agra, central India, and western Bihar, burning entire villages and massacring villagers and urban people. They had to fight and reconquer many parts of northern India, village by village. They had to cow down people with public hangings and execution without trial, thus revealing how deep the revolt was in these parts. Much of the strength of the revolt in 1857 lay in Hindu Muslim unity among the soldiers and the people, as well as among the leaders. There were complete cooperation as between Hindus and Muslims. All the rebels recognized Bahadur Shah, a Muslim, as their emperor. Also, the first thoughts of Hindu sepoys at Meerut was to march straight to Delhi. The Hindu and Muslim rebel sepoys respected each other's sentiments. For example, wherever the revolt was successful, orders were immediately issued banning cow slaughter out of respect for Hindu sentiments. Moreover, Hindus and Muslims were equally well respected at all levels of leadership. The role of Hindu Muslim unity in the revolt was indirectly acknowledged later by Acheson, a senior British official when he bitterly complained, "In this instance, we could not play off the Mohammedans against the Hindus." In fact, the events of 1857 clearly bring out that the people and the politics of India were basically not communal in medieval times and before 1858. The storm centers of revolt of 1857 were Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Bareilly, Jhansi, and Ara in Bihar. At Delhi, the nominal and symbolic leadership belonged to the Emperor Bahadur Shah, but the real command lay with the court of soldiers headed by General Bakht Khan, who had led the revolt of the Bareilly troops and brought them to Delhi. In the British army, he had been an ordinary subedar of artillery. Bakht Khan represented the popular and plebeian element of the headquarters of the revolt. The Emperor Bahadur Shah was perhaps the weakest link of the chain of leadership of the revolt. His weak personality, old age, and lack of qualities of leadership created political weakness at the nerve center of the revolt and did incalculable damage to it. At Kanpur, the revolt was led by Nana Sahib, the adopted son of Baji Rao II, and the last Peshwa. Nana Sahib expelled the English from Kanpur with the help of the sepoys and proclaimed himself as a Peshwa. At the same time, he acknowledged Bahadur Shah as the Emperor of India and declared himself to be his governor. The chief burden of fighting on behalf of the Nana Sahib fell on the shoulders of Tantia Tope, one of the most loyal servants. Tantre Tope won the immortal fame by his patriotism and determined fighting and skillful guerrilla operations. Azimullah was another loyal servant of Nana Sahib. He was an expert in political propaganda. Unfortunately, Nana Sahib tarnished his brave record by deceitfully killing the British garrison at Kanpur after he had agreed to give them safe conduct. The revolt at Lucknow was led by Hazrat Mahal, the Begum of Awadh, who had proclaimed her young son Birjis Qadr as the Nawab of Awadh, helped by the sepoys at Lucknow and by the zamindars and peasants of Awadh. The Begum considered an all-out attack on the British. Compelled to give up the city, the latter entrenched themselves in the residency building. In the end, the siege of the residency failed as the small British garrison fought back with exemplary fortitude and valor. One of the great leaders of the revolt of 1857 was perhaps one of the greatest heroines of the Indian history was the young Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi. The young Rani joined the rebels when the British refused to acknowledge her right to adopt an heir to the Jhansi Gaddi, annexed her state and threatened to treat her as an instigator of the rebellion of the sepoys at Jhansi. The Rani vacillated for some time, but once she had decided to throw in her lot with the rebels, she fought valiantly at the head of her troops. Tales of her bravery and courage and military skill have inspired her countrymen ever since. Driven out of Jhansi by the British forces after a fierce battle in which even women were seen working the batteries and distributing ammunition, she administered the oath to her followers that with our own hands we shall not our Azad Shahi bury. She captured Gwalior with the help of Tante Tope and her trusted Afghan guards. The Maharaja Sindhya, loyal to British, made an attempt to find Rani, but most of his troops deserted to her. Sindhya sought refuge with the English at Agra. The brave Rani died fighting on 17 June 1858, clad in the battle dress of a soldier and mounted on a charger. Beside her fell her lifelong friend and companion, a Muslim girl. Kunwar Singh, a ruined and a discontented zamindar of Jagdishpur near Ara, was the chief organizer of the revolt in Bihar. Though nearly 80 years old, he was perhaps the most outstanding military leader and strategist of the revolt. Maulvi Ahmadullah of Faizabad was another outstanding leader of the revolt. He was a native of Madras when he had started preaching armed rebellion. In January 1857, he moved towards the north of Faizabad to where he fought a large-scale battle against the company of British troops sent to stop him from preaching sedition. When the general revolt broke out in May, he emerged as one of its acknowledged leaders in Awadh. The greatness the greatest heroes of the revolt were, however, the sepoys, many of them who displayed great courage in the field of battle and thousands of whom unselfishly laid down their lives. More than anything else, it was their determination and sacrifice that nearly led to the expulsion of British from India. In this patriotic struggle, they sacrificed even their deep religious prejudices. They had revolted on the question of greased cartridges, but now to expel the hated foreigner, they freely used the same cartridges in the battle. This was the part 2 of chapter number 6. Please tune in again for part 3 of chapter number 6. All the best and good luck for your exams.